Hey, Forge fans, welcome. It's the match day preview. However, or wherever you may be watching and or listening, I'm Anthony Urciuoli. A big one this weekend because Forge FC is facing perhaps one of the most, let's say the most desperate club in the Canadian Premier League, HFX Wanderers FC at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, 4 o'clock kickoff, and that is on Saturday. So before we get to the match, we do have to mention, now we can't get too in depth. There will be opportunity for that, and you'll have to come back to get a little more. Jordan Hamilton joining Forge FC, the big forward, big body, a lot of it. Let's just put it this way. The rich just got a lot richer. Forge FC's attack it was already unparalleled. Now, I mean, what's a bigger word for that? I don't know. The big six, we'll call them. Borges, Pacias, Chouanier, Campbell, Welshman, and now Hamilton. The big six up front. This attack is so dangerous and can beat you in so many different ways. You have the pacier guys, and you have the big bodies. I mean, imagine trying to defend Terran Campbell and Jordan Hamilton on the pitch at the same time. It's going to be very difficult. Now, I mentioned earlier, we will get more in depth with Jordan Hamilton, with Forge FC, and you can actually find some of that now if you head on over to the Forge FC website. You can also listen to some interviews with Bobby Smirniotis and Jordan Hamilton himself. So plenty more coming up on that big signing. Don't worry, I won't leave you hanging. But now is not the time for that. Now is the time to talk about Halifax, Forge's opponent. When I say Halifax is desperate, well, first let me give you Forge's, the most in-form club in the league by far. 5 straight wins. They've scored. I'll do some quick math, and I'll embarrass myself with my poor math skills. But we have what? 6, 9, 14, 16. 1, 2, 3. 16-3, Forge have outscored their opponents right now in their last 5 matches. Unbelievable numbers. Unbelievable run for Forge FC, coming off a 4-0 win on the road against Atletico Ottawa, and that was just days after they beat their arch rivals on the west side of the country, Cavalry FC 2-1, and that was also on the road. So Forge is in form. There's no question about that. Halifax is reeling. They had very strong playoff hopes. They've had an up and down year. At certain points, Halifax looked like a top 4 club in the CPL and on their way to a playoff position. Now, they haven't won since June 25th. They have 4 losses and 1 tie in their last 5 matches. And they gave up 4 goals to York, who's been struggling to score all season. They had a draw at home against Edmonton, who's at the bottom of the table. So Halifax is in big trouble right now, and they are on the outside looking in. Over the last 5 matches, by the way, Halifax has been the worst club. They only have 1 point in the last 5 matches. They are at the bottom of the CPL table if we're going to narrow things down. Looking at the bigger picture, Forge FC, top spot, 32 points, tied with Pacific. Forge, though, have played 2 less matches. So they have 2 games in hand on Pacific. They have 3 games in hand on Cavalry, who's in 3rd place right now. Cavalry 1 point behind Forge. Forge is in the driver's seat, and there's no question. They are also plus 23 on the season with their goal differential. They've scored 37. They've given up 14. The best offensive team in the league, best defensive team in the league, and that's putting it mildly. Forge is plus 23. The next best plus minus is Cavalry. They're at plus 7. So I think that kind of sums up where the league is right now. The standings make it look close, but Forge is running away with it just on the sheer form and quality that Forge has put on the pitch this season. Halifax, 6th place right now. They are 11 points out of a playoff spot. Now, things can change quickly in this league. 6-point matches, when you have 8 teams in the league and you play every club 4 times. I just had to do some more. This is, see the blank look and the terror in my face when I try to do math. It's very embarrassing, but I trust you enough to let you see that side of me. Forge FC at the top, Halifax not at the bottom per se, but I mean they're hovering at this point. 6th place, 11 points out of playoff spot. The only chance they have at this point is to just collect 3 points consistently, and they're playing for their playoff lives against Forge in Hamilton. So Forge cannot afford to have a bad game. Now, as we do in the match day preview, it's not always about Forge because we want to know our opponents as well. So with that, let's get to know HFX Wanderers FC. All right, joining us now in the match day preview is Gary Griffiths. He runs the blog From a Ways, and he covers Halifax, the HFX Wanderers, and it's a club. How long have you been covering them for?
Pretty much since it started. So the club launched in 2018, I believe, and I hadn't actually moved here long before that. And I was hoping there'd be a football team. And when it launched, I remember just looking for stuff to read about the club and listen to about the club. But obviously, it was still really early doors, so there wasn't much out there. So yeah, I thought I might as well start one myself. And 3 years later, here we are.
So how long have you been in Halifax for?
Since 2016. Yeah, I moved here late 2016.
Okay. So this team then, and your previous soccer experience was overseas, I'm assuming?
Yeah,
Followed
yeah,
it pretty closely.
I'm from a town called Northampton. It's about an hour north of London, and
Right.
so I'm an Arsenal fan as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting then. So when you obviously two very, Arsenal's been around for so long and this is a fairly new club. What's been your impression of the Canadian Premier League and the experience with Halifax?
I think my experience is probably quite biased because obviously I feel very fortunate that I've experienced this league through the filter of Halifax and how much the club has been embraced by the city and the province. So I think my experience is really based around that, where it's been off the pitch, at least here, it's been a resounding success. I think there was already a core of football fans in the community here. I think when you don't have a CFL team, Moosehead's the hockey team. I think it's junior hockey or something. I'm not really an expert, but because you don't have like a tier one, like top club in a province, as soon as Wanderers came along, I think people really got into it. So you had your core of football fans who, I mean, they'd already started a supporters club before I even came here. So you had that core of people already, and then they just added to it and added to it and added to it. And you had like people who probably weren't that familiar with the sport would go to games. The atmosphere is incredible. So then they want to come again and go again. They tell a friend. And I think a lot of it has been word of mouth since then. And yeah, it's just been fantastic off the pitch. The club's done such a good job of building this like grassroots support.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, players, coaches that I've talked to with Forge, it is one of the most difficult stadiums to play in, Wanderers ground. So maybe just take us through that lens and the experience at the stadium.
Yeah, it's getting much better actually. I mean, it was always good in 2019, but in the first season, I think all of the noise and all of the passion tended to be centered in the kitchen, which is behind one of the goals. And where I sit in the main stand, it tended to be quite quiet, and people would just watch and wait to be entertained. But I think now people are becoming a lot more football intelligent and understanding the game more, and understanding when kind of we're required as supporters to give some to the players as well, and to the ref. And I think all around the stadium now the atmosphere is getting much better, but particularly behind the goals you've got two supporters groups there, the privateers who are the originals, and then you've got this new group of younger people called Block 108 Ultras, and they're just constantly jumping and bouncing and singing, and it's a really good time back there. So yeah, it's a really great atmosphere. I mean, I think our home record this season hasn't been too good, for a number of reasons, but I think a lot of it is actually down to Forge, because Forge really bloodied our nose in the first game against them 4-0. And I think the players had a massive kind of crisis of confidence after that. So while the atmosphere is still amazing, it's on the pitch, it's not been too good at home recently.
Yeah. So how long before, will you always wonder, will the support be there if the club is struggling? So, during this recent slide, has the atmosphere, has it been uplifting still, or has it gone down a bit?
Initially, it was still very supportive and very uplifting. I do think, I mean, we're on a pretty bad run at the moment. We've lost, I think, 4 of the last 5,
Hmm.
3 or 4 of the last 5 at home as well. And you're starting to notice, it's subtle, it's very, very subtle, but you're slowly starting to notice a bit more discontent from supporters. Um, I mean, it's not a full out revolt or anything. I don't think it'll ever come to that, but there's certainly dissatisfied fans now. Um, and that's a big question, I think. Like, do you maintain the support if you're one of the worst teams in the league? And I think that's probably something at the higher levels at the club right now. There's probably a lot of conversations around and a lot of hair pulling about. Personally, and it might just be my background coming from English supporters and fandoms, like, it doesn't really matter what the team's doing on the pitch. Like, if once you're
Right.
in, it's like you love this club. It's almost impossible. Like, they've got us now. They've got. I mean, I know for me personally, we could lose 6-0 every week, and I would still pay my $400 for a season ticket and turn up every week, which says more about probably my emotional intelligence than anything else. Because it's not good to be like that. But once the team has you, then yeah, it doesn't let go.
But it's interesting. It's kind of a cultural thing too, right? I mean, when you support a club, it's more than just a sports team. I mean, it becomes part of you. It's almost part of your identity, it becomes almost like a core value. That's how important it becomes. So what is the difference though? And a sports fan in England or in the UK versus a sports fan in Canada? What have you noticed in terms of differences?
I don't really know in terms of fandom, but just to speak on atmosphere, I think this might sound like I'm criticizing Canada, but I'm not. I'm actually complimenting Canadian fans because I think it's a lot nicer and a lot kinder, which is
Mm,
it's a huge cliche to say that, but um, I think when you go to, so just to kind of anecdotally talk about this, my mum was visiting a few weeks ago, and she
yeah.
came to a game, and she just kept saying how safe she felt in that environment.
Right.
And to be fair, like, football stadiums in England are a lot safer than they used to be now. Like, I stories from my parents in the 70s, they used to go to Chelsea, and it was
Mm,
just, oh god, the violence and the hooliganism,
right.
which doesn't really exist now because a lot of safety stuff's in place, but there is still this undercurrent of anger, I think, in British sports stadiums. People use games on the Saturday as a release, so maybe they've had
Right.
a bad week at work, and they just need something to kind of direct this
Interesting.
frustration at. And I think a lot of that comes out in the nastier sides of fandom in back home, which isn't everyone by any means. Like, but there is
Right.
there is definitely a subsection of people like that. Whereas I find here, even the most vocal of fans, it's always channeled in a positive way, and
Hmm.
the emphasis is on having fun rather than releasing some sort of pent up aggression. So yeah, I love the atmosphere here. I think it's
Yeah.
it's just a nice, safe place, and I'm not constantly worried that someone near me is going to shout something really inappropriate, and I'm going to have to wrestle morally with, oh god, do I tell this person who's a lot
Right.
a lot stronger and taller than me that he said like, so I don't worry about that here, which is nice. So yeah.
Yeah, and Wanderers Ground. I mean, when you compare, with Wanderers Ground and Tim Hortons Field, for example, you have two very different stadiums. I mean, Wanderers Ground, it's intimate. The fans are kind of right on top of you, and they're so close to the pitch. And I believe the capacity is around like 6,500,
Mm.
whereas Tim Hortons Field is expandable to 40,000 if they wanted to. So there is some differences there. Is it do you prefer the more intimate settings at your soccer matches?
Yeah, definitely. I think 6,500 in a 6,500 seater stadium looks a lot better than 6,500 in a 40,000 seater
Of
stadium.
course, yeah.
And in terms of the noise you can generate when everyone's really close together as well, it's yeah. I understand it though. Like, I don't think wouldn't want to criticize any of the clubs in big stadiums, because at the end of the day, we need as many clubs as we can get, and if that's the only option right now, then that's the only option right now. It's still,
Mhm.
I mean, I think what Forge do is quite good because you kind of put everyone on one side, don't you?
Right.
So for on the camera, in terms of optics, it still creates the illusion
Sure.
that everyone's packed in. So, and you guys have got a really good supporters group as well, so you can
Yeah.
generate a big atmosphere in that corner. So yeah, I prefer the smaller stadiums, but it is what it is with the teams that can't
Yeah.
have that. Like,
Let me ask you about the club before I know we're tight on time, so I'll let you go shortly. Just about the club. When things are going right for Halifax, what is it? What is going right for them where they are able to find success versus this stretch they've been in where they've been losing?
It's the alchemy of the fans and the team all popping at the same time. That's when it really works. I mean, the fans are normally really good, but it's kind of like lighting touch paper with them. As soon as the players are also doing well, the fans just go to another level. So when all of those things happen in tandem, that's when we tended to have put our best performances together.
Interesting.
So we just need to kind of galvanize the home support again. We've never been too good away from home, but actually this season we've been fairly good away. Well, not fairly good, but we've been better away from home. But the counterbalance to that has been our home form has not been too good. So it's kind of like once we get something working, the other thing stops working, and we just need that balance for everything to come together again.
And the quality in the lineup, so there's some work to do this offseason?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think it's going to kind of be, they're going to burn it down and build it back up again in this off season. To be honest, I think this season was probably for a handful of players the last chance to really prove that they could do it at the highest levels of this league, and a few of them haven't quite stepped up. I think you can't really have an open and honest talk about the club's performances this season without bringing up Yao Morelli, because he was obviously the best player in the league last year, our top scorer, the talisman of the club. And in the second game, he does his ACL and he's out for the season. And I think if the club say that, it sounds like they're making excuses. So I don't think they can really talk about that, because it's like, oh God, that's just an excuse. But it's true. Like if you took Carl Becker out of Forge, like you'd still have an amazing lineup of attackers, but
but there's a void there. There's definitely an irreplaceable void there. Yeah,
exactly. And with João Morelli, he was so important to the way we basically built a system and a tactical way of playing this season, which 100% revolved around getting the best out of him as a false nine. And if you take him out, then it doesn't. It's
a domino effect almost. Yeah,
but
kind of toppling.
Yeah, I mean, in the off season, there's definitely a lot of work to be done, because it does look like the playoffs are probably not going to happen now. It's quite a big gap, so I imagine the work off the pitch has already started in terms of identifying targets. The big question is, do we commit to this way of playing where we're playing now with like a lone 6, 2 8s, a front 3? Do we commit to that? And if we do, recruitment has to be based around finding players to plug those positions. So big off season ahead, I think, for Wanderers.
And if Halifax does well, it's good for everybody, right? You get a strong club on that side of the country, and that's what you're kind of looking for. Gary Griffiths, how can we read more of your work?
Yeah, so I write a blog. I'm not too prolific, to be honest, like 3 or 4 a year tops. But if you go to FromAways.com, I'm also on Twitter at FromAwaysHFX, and I'm on Instagram too, but I rarely use it, so I won't even bother plugging that.
Perfect. All right, awesome, great insight, Gary Griffiths. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
All right, I don't know about you, but I love getting insights into especially because I'm not a guy who enjoys leaving the city he lives in, which is Hamilton. So it's going to be hard for me to see all these other stadiums and other CPL markets. Maybe someday. Maybe virtually I'll visit them, but it is nice to get a glimpse into the rest of the league. It's the success of the other teams. It's something we don't want them to win per se, but you want it to be a strong league. You want every club, every market to be well represented, to have solid ownership, solid fan base, and a solid club. Listen, everybody wins. Everyone in this league wins when more and more teams are doing well. So, big match this weekend. If you haven't purchased your tickets already, you're going to want to attend this one. Forge FC could be the debut of Jordan Hamilton in a Forge uniform. Bobby Smirniotis, Forge FC's head coach and technical director, says Jordan has been training now for a few days with the club. By the way, this is a club he's very familiar with. Jordan Hamilton knows this team. He's known Kyle Becker since he was a baby. He said he's familiar. He's friends with guys, Ashton Morgan, Jonathan Grant. There's a number of guys that he's familiar with. This isn't like a brand new club. The shirt will look a little different for him. He hasn't worn this one yet, but he's familiar with the players. He's grown up with them, growing up in Scarborough. He's also familiar with Bobby Smirniotis. Smirniotis coached his older brother, and it was, according to Hamilton, it was Bobby's first big coaching job, and it was his older brother. So there are a lot of ties here. So Hamilton has trained with the club this week. He may see the fields against Halifax. Bobby's always a little, he doesn't like to give away too much, which is fair. So he may see some action this weekend. He's going to be eased into the lineup, Bobby said. So either way, you get a ticket. You may get a chance to see Jordan Hamilton's first match in Hamilton, but at the very least, there's a lot going on Saturday. So the family theme, we're going to keep that going this weekend. Inflatables, lawn games, prizes in the Stipley Fan Zone, which is on the south side of the stadium behind the in the end zone area there. $5 beers, as always, when the gates open, which will be at 3 o'clock for this match. Kickoff, of course, at 4. Also, you can win 2 tickets and a trip to Ottawa. Now, I just mentioned, I haven't really gotten out there and visited these other CPL markets. You can watch Forge in Ottawa. 2 tickets. It includes bus transportation and also a hotel. Tickets, transportation, hotel. You can win that this weekend if you attend the match between Forge and Halifax. Also, of course, after the match, stick around. There's a doubleheader. Sigma FC, where it all kind of started, in a sense, for Forge. Sigma taking on Unionville Melican. It's going to be a League One Ontario clash at 7 o'clock. Admission is included with your Forge ticket purchase. So a little added bonus there. And, of course, Families on the Pitch is back. After the match, you can take in the Tim Hortons Field's energy, get a feel for the turf, see if it feels spongy. That was a movie reference. I don't know if Fever Pitch. Anyways, don't take it from me. Go there yourself. Get the full experience. Tickets on sale. And we will talk to you soon, because we will have 3 keys to the match coming up. Also, match in review, and all of your Jordan Hamilton content will be available. Again, however, wherever you get your Forge content, whether it's through podcasts and whether it's on YouTube, on the site, social media, so many ways to get it. It's all there for you. We will talk to you soon.
We are the Forge, the mighty, mighty Forge. You just don't think you understand.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.